Well, how's everybody doing today? It's good to see you. I'm a little tired today. Just the daily grind of things going on. Today's video day, and um, I've got people coming in at 9. Uh, Vanessa's coming in at 9 as we shoot video for our first and second graders. And then I've got Dale and Jan coming in at 10, I believe, as they are going to be shooting video for our third through sixth graders. And then I'll be shooting video for our Wednesday night kids program. So today's all about the videos and then editing all of those. So, life sure has changed over the last several years. I work with videos. I've been messing around with videos for a number of years. Usually it was along the lines of, here, take all these pictures. Let's make a little cool after event video. Let's show it to the church. Let's celebrate that. Those are important, and those are things that we're still going to be doing. But the move to recording for production's sake, man, that's different than we are used to. And doing that on the regular is something that we are wanting to continue to do because we want to provide for our families, want to provide for our kids. What I sense right now is that we're all kind of in this just this lull. We're in a moment where we're not really sure what we want to do. We don't know. We don't know how to feel. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know how we ought to react to the things going on around us. We have many people that have discovered that online church sure is convenient, and you can do it from the comforts of your own home. But my concern is that we're missing some connections with people, and people are missing connections with each other. And just knowing how to react to that and how to handle that, all of us are trying to be careful with what we do. We're all trying to be careful in how we move forward. But when does it all end? We don't know. That's just the honest truth. We don't know when it all ends. But the reality is that we're trying to continue together to move forward in this time together. And working out those details is sometimes thrilling, and sometimes it's exhausting. I enjoy what we're doing. I like what we're doing, and I think we're trying to do the best that we can. And yet our fear, and my fear, is that we can't just think, okay, now we've got it set. I think that we always have to be looking ahead, and we have to be pushing ahead, and we have to be thinking forward. But our natural gravity of humanity is to find the comfortable spot and settle for a while. And I think that's a dangerous place to be. I think it's a dangerous place to just settle. And it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter who you are. I think it's a dangerous moment when we begin to feel, okay, I've got everything in order. We've got everything the way it should be. Let's just ride this out for a while. And our society, our culture is changing so often now that you can't really do that for any length of time and continue to be successful or continue to be relevant to what's going on around us on that day, that week. I'm not saying we have to reinvent the wheel every week. I think there are certain components and certain things that happen all the time and will continue to happen. But some of the methodologies that we have to adjust. We have to meet the needs of people where they are. For example, we weren't doing videos 6 months ago. Now we're doing 6, 8, 10 videos a week, trying to continue to meet the needs of people. I mean, this broadcast that we're doing right now started out of the need because we were scared to death. We had no idea what was going on, and we needed a sense of hope. And that's how this started. And even this is transitioning to be something that I feel can help us moving forward. I'm not saying that we don't need hope. We still need hope, but I'm not sure that we are in that desperate nature because we've learned more, we've lived more, we've understood more about what's going on. Now it's just a matter of moving on and moving forward. And we just have to review those things from time to time, and we have to understand those things from time to time. So, for instance, we yesterday on the show, we did what I call Talk It Out Tuesday, where you bring your questions and we talk about those things. And I think that that's a transitional element. It's not just, okay, here's your light for today. And we need that. And that's important to us. But engaging with one another and maintaining some connections and handling some of the issues is important. On Thursdays, I tend to have a special guest, and that special guest, I pre-interview, we video that, we interview that, and then we replay that for you on Thursdays as a way just to hear from other voices and hear from other people. How are they living for Jesus? Tomorrow's episode is a very special episode dealing with faith and loss, and how do you stay faithful in the middle of loss and grief? And that's tomorrow's episode. We're dealing with so many things that trying to understand how to move forward. There was a book I read several years ago called Ancient Future Faith. And the idea is that there's some things that don't change. And I think the attitudes that Jesus wants to shape in us, that we see in the Sermon on the Mount, or we see in his parables and his teachings, the attitudes that we see Paul wanting to shape of Christians and with Christians in the early church, those attitudes haven't changed, but the actions that surround and the events and the methodologies, the mission of the church hasn't changed. Win people to Jesus, develop them into stronger, faithful followers of Jesus, and reproduce that. That doesn't change. The mission doesn't change, but the way we go about it, it does change. The way that we transition those things does change. And I think that we have to be cautious not to continually want to just go back to a methodology that once worked and try to transplant that into a society that doesn't reflect in the same way. So we, in trying to review these things and understand these things, this is where we are in church work in general. We are trying to evaluate in the shepherding aspect of church leadership, what's best for the people when many times the people may not know either. And how do we provide the needs of the people, and how do we provide for them? And what are some ways and means that we go about that? Our traditional concepts in Baptist life are being challenged and they're being questioned. And I think that if we don't take a moment and at least evaluate, do a review, do an honest review, and ask ourselves, is the model that was used pre-COVID, is that the model that needs to continue to be used post-COVID? There will be a post-COVID. There will be a time where we will be beyond it. and we'll move past that. Now we may have to still deal with it, but we'll be vaccinated, and we'll have vaccines, and we'll have opportunities for that. But as we continue to move forward, what do we do now? There has never been a better opportunity than we have right now to reinvent ourselves. There's never been a better opportunity to start over than we have right now. And I believe that as we move forward, here's the question we need to be asking. What does COVID allow us to do? So many times the question we've been asking, or the anger that we've been having, is what COVID doesn't let us do. And so when we constantly think negatively about what COVID doesn't let us do, then that moves us to a position that says, I just want to go back to the way it was. I just want to go back. I just want to return. I just want to look back, go back, be in the past. Why can't we go back to what it was? The problem is life and culture and society is an ever-flowing river. The river that you see right now is not the river you saw 6 months ago. And the society you're living in now is not the society you lived in even 6 months ago. The people may be the same. The town may look the same. Your car hasn't changed. Your house bills haven't changed. But society as a whole, we have changed. And the church must be looking at how do we adjust to meet the needs so that we can see people coming to Christ and then be able to develop them and reproduce that on an ongoing basis. And so I think that we need to be shifting our questions away from why can't we go back, and shift that to what does this allow us to do? And I think we need to shift our mentality from I just want to go back to all of the things that we used to do. And I think that we need to take a review, and I think that we need to ask ourselves because we're basically starting over. There's a lot of things that we're just starting over. I mean, right now, as far as the scheduling goes, we have Sunday morning worship. And I know that people are like, well, I just want to get back to all the events that we once had. Well, I think we need to ask ourselves, are all the events that we had, are they relevant? Are they helpful? Are they moving us forward in our mission? Are they loving people to move them along life's journey? Are we actually doing those things? And if that event, that ministry, that concept, whatever it may be, if it wasn't, and if it isn't, then we need to take a hard look at all of these things, and we need to evaluate. This is a great time, and it's a great opportunity for us to take a review. And if we took the perspective, hey, let's act like we're starting over. Like, okay, let's act like it's a brand new church and we've just opened up and we're right back here in this community. Now, what would we do? And that's thinking missionally. This is a missiological, this is a missionary mindset, that if we were to look and act like, let's say we're a church planter and we're coming in and we have this, now what? What would we do to reach our community? Wherever you are, what would you do to reach your community if you could start over? If you didn't have all of the baggage, if you didn't have all the history, if you didn't have all of these things, but you had all the people, what could you do to reach and develop a community where you're planted? And I think too often what happens is we in our humanity we're just like, well, I just want to go back. It was comfortable. For who? Were we reaching the community? Were we seeing people come to Christ? Well, when you've got 80% of Southern Baptist churches that are plateaued, meaning they're not growing, or they're declining, and really the larger percentage of that group is that they're declining, they're really not growing. And if our scorecard is just, hey, let's just get people in the building, well, that's not necessarily the right scorecard. You can fill a stadium full of people and still lose the game. And so we've got to understand, what's the score? How do you keep score? What are we supposed to do? What's a win for us? And I believe some of these things haven't changed since Jesus walked the earth. And that is that we need to see the lost come to Christ. We need to see baptisms happening. That's conversions of people. And honestly, if you look at our track record for the last 10 to 15, 20 years, we haven't been doing that very well. We have the natural pattern of some of the families that have kids, they come to a point of decision, they've been in church long enough, they make a decision for Christ, and praise God that they do. But in a community of 15 to 20,000 people, you have very few churches that are really doing much of anything or growing in much of any way. And in that, why is that happening? Is it because we have just grown comfortable in the methodology that we grew up with, but we're not actually using the methodology with the current culture and society that we have? And so these are tough, awful questions to have to ask. These are questions that raise anger. These are questions that make people uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, we can get frustrated. But I'm telling you, we have to be looking at tomorrow more than we look at yesterday. And we have to evaluate, and we're going to have to take honest approaches. And I want us as a body of Christ, and whether you're with First Baptist Crowley or you're tuning in from some other church, I implore you, every one of our churches needs to be taking honest evaluations in this time and ask ourselves, what now? What do we do now? How do we pivot from this point? In the week of March 22nd, we had great pivots. We pivoted from on campus to online, and we pivoted for weeks doing that. And then we pivoted to a hybrid approach. And how do we handle that? And what do we do? And I think there's another pivot coming. There's another moment ahead of us that we need to prepare for, and we need to be ready for. Just because we may say, hey, everything's back open, we're all good, we're here. Here's the reality. Very few people are coming back. We're sitting right now at about 40% have actually returned to on campus. That should tell us something. If only 40% have come back, 60% are doing something else. Now, here's the thing. What is that 60% doing? They're either watching online from the comfort of their home because of a COVID-related issue, or they're watching from the comfort of their own home simply because it's easier. Or, and here's the scary thing, 60% aren't doing anything at all. Now, I know there are many that watch online, but what if there are also just as many that haven't been to church in 6 months? Now what? And see, we have to be addressing these things moving forward. And we've got to take the time to evaluate what's happening. And the easy thing would simply be, well, let's just put everything back into play like it once was. What if that really wasn't working? What if what we did 5 years ago, what we did 6 months ago, what if that doesn't work in 2021? Yes, we are actually having to start talking about 2021 now. What if things in 2021, we have to make a pivot again? We have to shift again. What if we have to make a different move? Then are we ready to do that? And I think we have to be ready to do that. And I ask you, let's be ready to do that. Let's be flexible as we move forward, recognizing that we may take 2 steps forward and a step back, realizing that we may try something and it doesn't work, or we may try something and it works for 6 months, but don't get used to it, because 6 months later, something different happens and something else may be going on. We've got to be prepared to meet the needs of today, not meet the trends of yesterday. That takes a lot of prayer. I ask you, pray. Pray for an attitude of Christ. Pray for a flexible mind. Pray for a flexible attitude through these times to say that we're going to trust in what God is doing, and we're going to just move with the process. We're not going to change the gospel, and we're not going to slow up on the gospel, but we must be reaching the community we have. And the community we have is not the community that used to be here. It is brand new. Every day it's different. Every day it's new. And we have to be reaching that community. And so how do we do that? How do we reach this community? Now, before you start giving me actions that take us back to 1980, let's talk about what kind of attitude should we have. And that is where Jesus really speaks to us. This is where really Paul and Peter and James, they really speak to us, because they speak to, I was reading Colossians this morning, and it was talking about put away these actions, but put on these attitudes. Put on the attitude of love, which is the foundational unit for unity. Put on love. If we really loved our neighbors, if we really loved the neighbors on our street and in our communities, our system of things would change. Let us start with that. Let us just love our neighbors. I truly believe, and it sounds way too simplistic, but the reason why we have the issues we're dealing with in our culture today is because we forgot how to love our neighbor, and the church forgot how to love her neighbor. Our church has been enamored with loving itself and loving its programs and loving its processes and loving who it used to be and loving who it thinks it wants to be. But we forgot how to just love our neighbor. And it's time that we get back to the basics and just love our neighbor. And how do we do that? And how do we do that? These are the questions that we have to face. And these are the causalities of the change that may be uncomfortable for some. But it's not about reaching the 99 that are in the pen, that are secure, that are safe and sound and with the shepherd. It's leaving the 99, going and finding the one that's important. Won't you help your pastor, help your leader, and those of you that are in First Baptist Crowley, won't you help me and our leadership to keep safe the 99, but also to go reach the one? We have a community filled with people that need the light of Jesus. And may we be the bearers of light and the bearers of love to open up their heart to a hope they didn't even know they needed. Y'all have a great Wednesday.